are live.
Love Facebook.
Who wears a number of hats.
The opportunity to share.
She's one of our own. It has been
They aren't like
parts to your story that I think that's awesome. You found healing. You found healing.
until I got so bad.
Can't wait for her to share with us the different aspects of your story and what it is. Awesome.
Right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of Rooted Recovery Stories. My name is Patrick Custer, and I'm the National Director of Alumni for Promises Behavioral Health. Today, I'm so excited because we are kicking off September's National Recovery Month. And with that, part of the way we are celebrating and recognizing Recovery Month is that we are having a order of special speakers that are coming on our show each week. And our first one today is Crystal Moore from Houston, Texas, who is our brand new alumni advisor over the Right Step Houston's alumni program there. And actually, today is her first day, and we're so excited. I have not heard her story yet, and so it's extra special for me as well. And I know there are a lot of you from Houston that are watching live and are excited to hear her story too. I'm excited to hear it, for everybody to hear, get to know her. And Crystal, welcome.
Thanks, Patrick. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks, everybody, for watching. So I'm going to start with how my family was. So I guess it first started out that I think I had a pretty decent childhood, but there, like, alcoholism runs and addiction runs in both sides of my family. But I never was introduced to that. My dad has always been a drinker, a functioning. And my parents, my mom was like, a goody-goody. She was like a Catholic. We were raised Catholic. That was a big issue whenever I was a child because my dad didn't want me to go to church. My mom did. So it was kind of like a struggle thing. But for the most part, like I didn't grow up in a household when you got like abused or anything like that compared to a lot of people that I know. So I say to chalk it up that I've had a decent childhood. And but things started getting rocky for me at 12 years old because my parents decided to split up. And later on, like I had to catch myself because I would always use that as my excuse to keep using or why I'm doing bad stuff or why I'm keep getting arrested and stuff like that. But so I was around alcohol, but I have two older brothers. They're from Canada. They have different dads. They came to live with us at like 4 years old when I was like 4 or 5, maybe a little older than that. My oldest brother, I saw him like dabbling with drugs and stuff, and I really didn't know what it was at first. And this was after I was, when I was older. So they were like smoking pot or whatever. And then he got caught up with like acid and stuff and started getting arrested all the time. And my middle brother never got caught, but he was doing it too. And so that really started where I was just introduced to it. And then so I decided to start smoking weed. And it's funny or it's not funny, but whenever I was an adult, like I really don't like pot. Like that's the one drug that I don't like. So, but that's where it all started. And I think I was 12. Like it must have been right when my parents split up. So I smoked with my cousin. And from then on, I just kept smoking. And then I got in with the wrong crowd when I was like in 7th grade. I started hanging out with, the people that were smoking and whatnot. And then I decided to try to be a drug dealer in 7th grade, which was a big mistake because I didn't know what I was doing, and tried to sell like acid or whatever. And so I was like rebelling because I felt like, my parents screwed my life up and whatnot. But, after I worked the steps eventually, and it took that long for me to realize, which is sad, but like I have 3.5 years clean. I should have mentioned that at the beginning, but I'm a little nervous.
No worries. Hey, I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
So you mentioned that your dad was kind of a functioning alcoholic growing up.
Mm-hmm.
What was the tone in your household around that? And, aside from, you said, I didn't really experience what people talk about, childhood abuse and whatnot,
Mhm.
on a grand scale, but how did your mom approach that subject with you? Were you aware that he was an alcoholic?
Yes.
Or was that just something dad did? And yeah, what was that? And did that play out in a codependency struggle between him and her?
It did, but like, cause she wasn't a drinker. I mean, she would drink like occasionally, but very seldom. Um, but it was toxic in a sense of like I guess it was verbally abusive. So I didn't, I still, I guess it's because I've heard so many of my friends tell their stories that I just say that like I had a great childhood because and the thing is that after they split up, I would play them against one another too. So I was
Mm-hmm.
very spoiled. Like my dad spoiled me rotten. And that came, back to, he regretted that later on because I'll get to that point though. But yeah, it was verbally abusive. Like they would always be fighting and whatnot, but not to my knowledge any physical. Um, I didn't see it, but
So what did you? So as far as acknowledging that there was alcoholism going on, what was the narrative that you understood at that age? Was it something that you just accepted, or was it, how were you taught about that? Like what was going on? You know what I mean? What was the perspective that you got from your mom? Because clearly your dad's not going to, your mom's the one that's going to say, hey, this is what's going on with your dad.
yeah,
We either
well,
don't talk about it or.
I saw him, like I saw it, and I thought it was normal because my grandfather did the same thing, and then like
Mm,
later I found out, which this is kind of, I guess, toxic too for a childhood, is that I used to go as a baby. I used to like he used to bring me to the bars, and like they were friends with the barmaids, and they would like watch me.
wow.
So yeah, but I've always had a really good relationship with both of my parents. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Been through whatever they go through. I've
sure.
and maybe and well, I not maybe, but I was very spoiled to the point to where like I said, it came to backfire. Um but I so when I got like 15 years old, I was still playing the cards like against my parents against each other. So I would I would be real deceiving and be like, hey, I need money for this from one of them and tell this other one the same thing. So I'd get double. And
Mm-hmm.
so I played that for as long as I could. But I started, like I said, when I was in seventh grade, I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. And it was actually my brother. He had a friend. So I became friends with the younger sister. And they were trouble. But we started going to raves in Houston and stuff. So I was like big rave scene, right? And didn't even drive yet. But I started doing really hard drugs, and I kind of did it backwards because even though I smoked pot at first, I did the really hard stuff before, like, actually found my DOC that I love. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so like I was doing, at the raves they do meth and what am I allowed to say all that?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Okay.
we're an open book.
Okay.
So yeah.
So I was doing that, ecstasy, and all that stuff like when I was young, and I did that throughout till I was out of high school. And like and I don't know how I graduated with honors, but I did somehow. And I missed so many days. Like though I remember I had to make up, like I had to stay after school for a long time because I missed like 50 something days, and I almost didn't graduate because of that. Because I would just stay home or stay out partying or whatnot. And
Yeah.
so when I graduated high school, and so my dad bought me all kinds of brand new cars and stuff when I was 16. I got like the Eddie Bauer Expedition like off the showroom floor, and it was just crazy. And
Do you remember when you were going through those years in your teen years? So when you feel that first, change in the way you're feeling from, like you said, you started on marijuana and then, switched to some of the harder party drugs and what have you. So much of that for us when we start out in that scene, it's a lot of the lifestyle because everybody around you is doing it. So it just feels normal. But at some point, there's a narrative that plays out in our head and we start to question ourselves and say, what am I doing? Like what, either you have a motivation, right? Like you're avoiding some feelings, you are bored, or sometimes it's just, you name it. For me, I was bored. covering up feelings, the wind blew the wrong way one day, celebrating something, you know, I mean, it didn't matter. But, you know, so do you remember ever what going through your head, you know, early on, you know, because we there's a part of us that says, I know this isn't normal because I spent my entire life up until now not doing any of this. And there's always something we tell ourselves as to why we're doing it. And I'm curious if there was what yours was. Do you remember in, you know, in your teen years, or was it simply that everybody else around me is doing it and I'm kind of bored?
Well, I think it was a little bit of both. I definitely was covering up some feelings, or a lot of feelings, because I was upset. Like, it really did affect me when my parents got divorced. Like, I was like, devastated. And like, they even tried, I remember them trying to work it out for like a week, and then it just didn't work, and they just went their separate ways. But another thing is that like my mom ended up, and she's never said anything to this day, but my mom ended up marrying a guy like the day that she got divorced from my dad. And like, I remember it was like 2 months after they actually split up out of the same household. And
Wow.
the other guy proposed to her. And I was so upset, because I was like, this don't make no sense. Obviously you were cheating on dad, but you know, I don't have any proof of that. It's just kind of common sense is what I'm thinking. But she never would admit it. So she said she doesn't, you know, she doesn't cheat, or she didn't cheat or whatever. But I'm a daddy's girl too, so like that really hurt me, because I was like, man, why would you do something like that? But I was only 12, you know, I didn't really understand everything. Now I'm like, I couldn't even picture them together. But yeah, so it was definitely, I think it was more covering up feelings, but then maybe it was like another reason, like to fit into the crowd, you know,
Sure.
like you know, just to fit in and be cool or whatever. And
Yeah.
So I did that, you know, and then I was 18, and I started I was about to graduate. And so it must have been 6 months after I graduated is the first time I got arrested, and it was for possession, and it was Xanax. So, and I forgot to mention this, but like when I was like starting at 12, like I had this cyst on my tailbone, and I remember getting pain pills from the doctor, you know, but like at that age, I really didn't, you know, I just took them as, you know, I needed it or whatever, or my dad gave it as, you know what I mean? But, cause my point is later on, that's my DOC. So, but when I first tried it, I was like, you know, I'd rather do the other stuff, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure, or I can't remember if that was like, I just did other things to fit into the crowd, because like on the rave scene, you know, that's like meth and ecstasy and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so doing it, so we're doing it together. And so yeah, I got arrested for possession of Xanax, and I ended up getting that case dropped because my dad had a friend that's a doctor, and how convenient is that? So he was like, it's mine, you know, right? And so we showed the lawyer, got it dropped. Okay, so my dad always bailed me out of any situation that I was in, which maybe it would have been different if he didn't.
We all have that primary enabler, you know?
Yeah. And my was like the one that I like, so my dad would always bail me out, but he was the one that you couldn't get anything past either, right? Because he's been there and done that. My mom grew up in Canada, so like she's with 9 brothers and sisters, and they were raised Catholic, like I said. So it was a whole different, you know, situation for her. But my dad, I couldn't get anything past him. It's like I felt like he had a radar detector, and he could like pinpoint any drug that I was on at the time. But
Yeah.
I'm very naive, so like I took advantage of that. So I would stay at my mom's house whenever I wanted to go out and go party all night. And yeah, it was very, very deceitful. So
Sure.
but once you get in the system, like I always hear people say, once you get in the system, like, and get in trouble, that you never get out. And that's kind of like how I feel is pretty much what happened. So you know, I've got arrested about, you know, 13 times that I'm not proud of, but finally I guess it did something the last time and made me want to change, which did, because that's what sent me into treatment. But in my 20s, my early 20s, so like I started going to college after I graduated high school, and I ended up like I was still messing with a different crowd, because I would go stay at my mom's house, and it was in Humble. So I found another crowd to hang out with. So, you know, that's when I got into the coke and stuff. And yeah, I went to college and I dropped out. I remember I dropped out and I got the money sent back to me. And then like I turned in my books for the money to go buy drugs. And then I lied to my parents and they were looking for the books. And like, it was just crazy. So, I got arrested again shortly after that. And I don't even know what the dates are of my arrest. Except for the most recent ones that I'll get to. But, I got arrested the second time for theft, for stealing at a store. Okay. And, it's sad because a lot of my arrests are theft related charges because that's how I got my drugs. Because when I started getting in trouble, my dad started cutting me off like of money.
Yeah.
And I still had a car, so but I was like, it was crazy, Patrick. I was like wrecking my cars, like, and I had nice cars. I kept wrecking them. I mean, I was very rebellious, but I would always use the excuse that my parents did this to me because they got divorced. You know what I mean? And now I obviously like, I accept that's crazy. You can't ride that out. Like you're in your 20s already. That was like at 12 years old. So, but
isn't it crazy how between our excuses and the lies we tell in active addiction to get out of things, it's like somebody else is in the driver's seat. Like that's what I felt like. I don't know if you felt the same way, but it was like it would just come out of my mouth so quickly, and I almost wouldn't even have to think about it. This altered truth, and it just came so easy, like butter. I mean, but it was almost like somebody else was driving my brain, or a separate part of my brain that wasn't really me. It was saying all that, I don't know. It just, as you said that, I thought I might point that out and see if that was kind of your experience as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because it's my dad used to tell me all the time that I should be a lawyer or a weatherman because they lie so much. So I was like, yeah, it just seemed like everything that came out of my mouth was a lie. And now this day I can admit that, right? But back then I think I believed my own lies. I think
absolutely.
So yeah, so I kept getting arrested, and mind you, my dad would help me like with the lawyers and stuff like that. He didn't, but he would like pay them directly. He wouldn't give me cash. So because he knew I already played that game out. Like they figured that out. So that didn't work for me anymore. But my middle brother, or not middle, but the one that they're both older than me, but the one in the middle, he went to the Marine Corps, right? But I knew he was still doing drugs. I saw him doing drugs and whatnot, and like we used to smoke weed together. And after because I would smoke weed a little bit, in my teenage years still, but it really just wasn't my thing. And it's crazy because that's like, I feel like that's the only drug that I couldn't control. Like I just felt so out of it on weed. And so he went to the Marine Corps, so that was a real hard part for me too to deal with, because he got deployed, and that was like in 2003. He was on the front line, and so that freaked me out because I was so worried about him, and I just stayed high all the time. And meanwhile, my oldest brother is like bringing, he started bringing his girlfriends home and stuff, and like they would use IV drugs like in front of me, and I was like freaked out about the needle thing. So I remember one time his girlfriend shot up in front of me and she just fell out, and like I had to catch her, and I was like, oh my God, this is too much. But so my brother was a really, really bad IV user, meth, and he it's actually crazy because his out date of prison is my sobriety date. So he was in and out of prison though, so I saw a lot of that. And we would find syringes everywhere around the house, and that was crazy. And
was that part of your sorry to interrupt you here, but I kind of a related question. Was that part of your internal justification, thinking like, this is a phase that I'm in my life. I'm just having fun. I'm not anywhere near, like, drug addiction is what my older brother does and is. I am just in this little phase, and it's manageable, and when I'm ready, I'm going to grow out of it. And is that kind of like the narrative you push?
Definitely, because I would always tell everybody, like, this was my bragging point, is that, oh, I've done every drug, right? And nothing has got a hold on me. I'm not addicted. Like, I can easily stop anything. And I did, until I got on prescription,
Mm-hmm.
And found out that I do have an addictive personality or whatever. I always bragged about that. I was like, look, I can stop doing anything. Like, I didn't have any type of like side effects or withdrawals from any of the other drugs the hard drugs. So I figured if I could bypass all the hard drugs and be okay, that I would be good. So, eventually, like, I kept getting arrested. I kept getting bailed out, it was misdemeanor stuff. Then I got in trouble and I caught a forgery charge, which is a felony. And, it was straight probation that I did, and I completed the probation without getting arrested, but it's going to be on my record forever. And that was about 12 years ago. Excuse me. And so I did all that, and then my brother was in and out of prison. I was still trying to like do good and work and whatnot, and I could not hold a job for very long. And then it was always like fast food places because I had that charge on my record, right? So I would use that as an excuse now. Like, that's okay. Right. I can't even look for a job because I have a felony. They're not going to hire me. Like I would play out these things. Like, so I was still, in that state of mind that I, could lie my way out of everything or just make excuses for everything. Cause that's what we're good at. And,
yep.
So, that didn't get me very far, but, I remember the first rehab I went to was West Oaks in Houston, and it's kind of like, it's a hospital. If people in Houston know what it is, they're like, ugh, that place, because it's kind of more psych than drug addiction. Mm-hmm. But so I went for detox because I totally skipped this part, but I started Houston was good with the pill mills and stuff. I used to go doctor shopping because I started liking,
sure.
You know what I can do. I'm getting in trouble, so I had to find a way out to get high. So, like, I'm on probation. I have to get something prescribed to me because they're going to drug test me and I can't pop for anything. So that started my big downfall into addiction because I got hooked on pain pills. And that is the worst thing I've ever, encountered.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking like up to 100 perks a day. And,
wow.
My tolerance is so like horrible. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just builds up so quickly.
Yes.
And so, like, I mean, we would pay people to go to the doctor. Like, that was when they didn't check your record either. So it was so easy to go to as many doctors as you wanted and, hit the pharmacies. And it was crazy. So they started shutting the doctor's places down, right? So they started, arresting these people and closing all the pill mills. So they were, like, really hard to come across. But I'm, like, really bad into this addiction. So I started like buying them and stealing and stuff for like, stealing at stores to like pay the pill lady so I could get some pills. And then it just got so dry that nobody had any. And then I decided, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go get treatment. Like, I need help because I can't deal with the withdrawals. So I went to West Oaks and I got prescribed Suboxone, and I thought that I was sober this whole time. And I have nothing against maintenance programs, but for me, I felt something from it. Like, I got a euphoria from it, but I would never admit that while I was taking it. I was always like, yeah, that don't get you high. It keeps you from getting high. Right. So, I ended up staying on Suboxone for 9 years. I didn't go back to pills. I didn't relapse, and go back to pills, but I just stayed on Suboxone. So when I got in trouble again, I got 2 felony charges within 2 weeks of each other. And, there were different counties, so I ended up being on felony probation in 2 different counties. And they were Liberty County is where I live, and then one in Harris County, which is Houston. And Liberty, I had to do like polygraph tests for these theft charges because they were felonies now. I had, misdemeanors, they added up because I had more than 3 charges. So, and that's nothing that I'm proud of. I'm very like, ugh, about that, but it's part of my story, and it's part of where I'm at right now. And I remember when Liberty County, so I was on both of them. They were like a month apart, right? So I got arrested within a week, but I got sentenced within a month apart. So I was gonna finish both of them around the same time, and I kept failing these polygraph tests, right? And it was like the drug. If you fail one question, you fail the whole test, and it was about the drugs. The question about the drugs I kept failing, but I was just taking my prescribed drugs, right? And
Right.
then, but my PO was like, okay, you keep feeling these, what's going on? And she's like, how long have you been on Suboxone? And so I was like, almost 9 years. And she was like, holy shit, like, can I say that? So that's exactly what she said, though. Okay. And
we're real on this.
okay. And
On this show,
so she went and told the chief of probation, and he's like, okay, you have two choices. You can go to Safe P, which is like a treatment for, it's like a 2-year prison thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a prison type of treatment.
Sure.
Or you can, or you can go to a different treatment. And so I begged him, like, if I go to like a private, pay with my insurance, can I go to a rehab? Like, I'll go. And to be honest with you, like, I was so, like, I had so much resentment for my PO, but now I'm grateful that it happened because I know that I need it. Deep down, I knew I needed to get off of it. And I could have fought it probably because I wasn't abusing the Suboxone. I was just taking it, right? But I was hooked on it. And I know that I shouldn't have been on it for that many years. So, like, I just knew that deep down. But if this wouldn't have happened, I probably would have never gotten off of it, to be honest
Mm-hmm.
with you. And
Yeah.
and it's like a lot of people they're on the MAT program, right? And they take it because they actually have pain that they have to deal with. And I didn't. Like, so I was faking that. Like, the doctor was like, how's your pain scale? And I'm like, oh, 4. So he would keep giving it to me. And so, like, there are people that do need it, and it helps them, and it's a good compared to like taking a bunch of pain pills. So
Yep.
so they sent me to, well, I called around and I found the Right Step in Houston on West Alabama, the old location. And so I checked, like, I called, and I had like 2 weeks to get to check in, is what they gave me, my PO. So I called and I got a room. They told me that a bed would be ready like the next week or whatever. So I was good with that. And I went to treatment, and here I am. So I'm very grateful for the Right Step. I actually was really happy when in treatment. Like, I mean, I had withdrawals, but they, I did a taper or whatever, and I had withdrawals. So I was real sick for like 1 week, but I'm so grateful that I did that. Like, or I'm grateful that happened to me where I was forced into it, because if I wasn't, then I would still probably be using. And,
Yep.
and so they say, like, a lot of people think that if they're forced into, treatment, that it's not going to work. And I halfway believe that. But like in my case, it was like treatment or prison. So I was like, okay. But I actually started feeling good, like after I got off of it, I was like really proud of myself, and I started feeling really good, like physically. And because that was what I was scared of. I knew I needed to get off of it, but I was so scared of the physical withdrawals, and they do suck, because I went, I was very sick for like 1 week, right? And and it's probably worse than when I was on the pills, because it has such a long half-life. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm just very grateful that I got, pushed into that situation, because I wouldn't be here. And I have a daughter, which I guess I left her out of the whole story, right? Oh my gosh. But I got pregnant when I was 26, and I had my little girl. Actually, her birthday was just 2 days ago. She's 9 years old now. And I used to take her, in and out of when I would, go to the Suboxone doctor and stuff. So she, like, I probably did introduced her to that, that was not good. And me and her dad, I've left this part out too, because I'm like all over the place, but that thanks to drugs. But I got with her dad when I was 21, and we that was when I was still doing like coke and all that stuff, and like we would get high together, but like it turned into and this is a big part of my story too, and I can't believe I left it out. But me and her dad were together for like 13 years, and he was, at the first few years were good, but then it became very physically abusive. And I was always one of those people or one of those women that were like, would say, I can't believe she's putting up with that. Like, I would never let a man hit me. And now I can vouch for them and say, like, I'm sorry I thought that way, because you don't know until you're in that situation.
Yeah.
And so that was very, very toxic, and I had never experienced that before, but I was scared to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And it would come in waves, like, because it depends on what he was getting high on, I guess. And he was dabbling in other things that I I wasn't doing, and I didn't know about it. But like, then he started smoking that synthetic stuff, and it just got really, really bad. And like, he, I had like my nose broken. I would always have black eyes. Like, it was crazy. And he started doing it in front of our daughter after I had her. And like I said, it would go in waves. So I was like hoping, like, oh my gosh, he's gonna change. And it never did change. It would stop for a little bit, and then it would start again, and then it would stop. And I'm like, okay, and
What finally got you to the place of making a change in that situation?
honestly, working the steps, like because
So was it post sobriety that you left him?
year after
Wow.
I was sober. And I don't know how I stayed sober in a physically abusive relationship, because he would hit me like in front of our daughter, and just go crazy, drive crazy. Like, he always used to tell me, I'm going to kill you. Like, and I was like, wow, like if I wouldn't have left him, he might have killed me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was a really bad part of my life. And it was such a big chunk of my life that, and I had such like really bad resentment, towards him. So it was the steps when I found the right sponsor, and I met her at the Spirit of Houston. It was an AA convention,
Very.
and I went through a bunch of sponsors. So when I first got out of treatment, I'll get back to the resentment part with him. But when I first got out of the right step, I tried to find some sponsors and stuff, and I would go to some meetings. But then I was like, I was still at that, in that mindset that, okay, I'm sober now and I'm good, so I really don't need to work this program. Like
Yeah.
and like I was, I kept having sponsors that like I didn't like them telling me what to do, or I didn't like them talking to me the way they did. So I was like, you know what, I don't have to deal with this. And then I was like, I would play the card of like, okay, y'all have these 12 steps, but like, and they say God or higher power in them, but like I have no connection. I've always believed in God, but I don't have like a relationship with him. I always just prayed, and I always say this when I share my story or anything. I always say that the only prayer I used to pray was like, please let the dope man be home with some pills, or like, please let the doctor not run my driver's license, catch all the other doctors I've been going to. So it was all the wrong prayers. But so like my sister introduced me to her church, okay? And this is in Baytown, and I started going, and then I was like, man, this is great. So like I started going to church every single week. I got on like the serve team and whatnot. And, I just found like that church is where I'm supposed to be. And, church is not for everybody, and that's cool. But I was really happy. It's a non-denomination church, because I still had that like effect from the Catholic church when I was younger, and I didn't agree with it. And no, nothing against the Catholic church, because my whole family in the North is Catholic, but that just wasn't for me.
Sure.
So, after I found that, then I like, it was like a year later, so a year post sobriety, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start going to these meetings again. Like I think that I'm good now. Like I know who God is. Like I'm, me and God are cool. So let me go work. Try to find a sponsor or do some service work. So I one of my friends from like one of the meetings that I had went to, the park meetings, had told me about the Spirit of Houston convention. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to come do service work. So I went the whole weekend and did service work, and, stayed at the hotel and just did like the place where we, served the food and whatnot. So, I really enjoyed it, and I met a lot of people. And then I met my sponsor, which was like the fifth one that I've been been through. And, she's amazing. So like, I'm so excited because like, we went to like the church that's under this, she went to the church too. And they're like under the Ark, which is like this group of churches that are run by, the Ark. And so they're all related, to make it make sense. I don't know how to explain it, but, she went to like the church that my pastor is best friends with her pastor. So I was like, wow, this is crazy. So, I started talking to her, and I was like, man, will you be my sponsor? Like, this is great. Like, I feel, like we would be a good match. And so like, that's the first sponsor that I went through, and we actually went through the whole 12 steps. And, So I'm super happy about that. And then I started sponsoring women, and I love doing service work. I'm on the Spirit of Houston committee, or this year I haven't been because of work, and we're not having a convention anyway because of the pandemic.
Sure.
So yeah, so I'm really involved in service work. I love it. Like I do service work at the CA convention for Cocaine Anonymous because that's my home group. And I love doing that though, because like there's something about service work that, and I used to be like, I'm not doing any work without getting paid, but service work really like feeds your soul. Like,
Isn't that the truth?
I love it. And I love trying to help others and reaching out to others. So like when I'm asked to do something like lead a meeting or come tell your story, I always like, told myself like try to, if your schedule lets try to just not, turn any of that down. So if somebody asks me to lead a meeting, I'm like, sure, just because like that's what I need to do. Because I feel like if I don't keep that up, then I'm going to go backwards. You know what I mean? So like I have to stay in it, and it's a work in progress. I mean, it's a job every day to stay clean. Like, that everybody knows that, like, you have to work for it.
Right.
Like you have to stay connected. And I've grown to know that. Like, I'm glad that I found my church family, but I'm glad I found my recovery family as well. And because I need both of them. And if I don't work the steps and I don't keep in contact with sober contacts, then I know that I'm starting to slip. So this whole virus thing that's been going on this year has put, I think, everybody into shock. So,
Yeah.
But after I worked
I will say right there though, that one of the cornerstones that we learn in sobriety is that we are the only person that's in charge of our recovery. And I think it's been really cool to watch so many people in recovery say, how are we going to get creative? How are we going to figure out a way to maintain that connection throughout the pandemic? And I know I'm not saying a lot of people haven't struggled with it, but we've seen some really cool things happen in the recovery community across the nation, across the world. People connect for the first time that have never done, phone or internet meetings. Some really beautiful stuff has come out of such a big tragedy. So,
and I'm a very optimistic person. So I try to really stay positive about everything, and just try to keep negative vibes away from me because, I just don't need that bad juju anymore. So,
yeah.
I try to just keep pushing and be optimistic and stuff. And I'm very grateful for my job at the Right Step because I think that's gotten me through this whole year too. Because it's kept me engaged, even though my work is work. That's different from my recovery stuff, but it still has you engaged with people that you can relate to. So I'm very grateful for that, because at least I had that, and luckily I got to work throughout this whole thing. So I'm grateful for that as well. But yeah, after I worked the steps is when I got rid of, put an end to the relationship that I was in, and decide like I know I deserve more because he's in addiction still. So I'm a single mom. I have my daughter here. He lives in Louisiana, so that's okay. But when I made I made amends with everybody, that's when I started feeling like really good. So I was very against the steps, didn't want to work them at first, and then actually after I worked them, it was amazing. So and I'm all for people. I know a lot of people that I come across like at work and stuff, they don't like the meetings. There's too many meetings. They don't like the meetings and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, whatever makes them stay sober is good. As long as you're staying sober, if it's spiritual, if you need to go through the church, like I've been through both of them. So like I was at that point once in my life too. So that might bring you out to work the steps, so, whatever keeps you sober, I'm all for that.
Absolutely. Well, and I got sober through a 12-step program as well. And that is what worked for me and has kept me sober. And I think part of that for many of us who do get sober in the 12 steps, and really, I'm just speaking for myself. I was very headstrong in thinking that, really 12 steps was the only way, people who weren't practicing 12 steps weren't really sober. And I've, through working in recovery for so long, gotten to just have my perspective changed by a lot of lives that have, gone through SMART recovery, refuge recovery, celebrate recovery. There's a lot of different modalities that do work for people. But when we talk about recovery, the big thing is speaking from experience and our own experience, and so obviously, for you and I, that's 12 steps, and I can relate with you as well. That I just wanted to point out that that your journey through getting sober in the 12 steps is what gave you really a relationship with God. And for me, I was raised in a church. I mean, in the South, we were at church always Sunday night, Wednesday night, prayer group Monday nights, and a sprinkling of special events throughout there. Like I was raised in it, but we learned that I've got to fire my parents' idea of God and find out who God is for myself and develop that relationship from there. And I think the way that you explained that was a beautiful representation of the gift of sobriety and recovery and what's in store, if you want it and seek it. One of the other things I wanted to point out as well is, I don't know if we've gone over this piece yet or not, but the three kind of pillars of our alumni program and Rooted for Promises is connection, support, and service. So we started this national alumni program last May and in 2019. And one of the things we sat down and did was we said, all right, let's think of three things that are basic, simple concepts that people can wrap their mind around, that are very important and essential, and that we will surround all of our efforts or base all of our efforts out of, kind of as a guidepost, as we move on from here and we grow and ask ourselves, is this our mission vision? And we came to connection, support, and service. And to explain that a little bit further, we talk about the services that we provide in our alumni program. So outside of the recovery modalities, outside of 12 steps and everything like that, but people who go through our treatment programs get our connection, our service rooted for life. And so that is the support side of things, right? So we're providing all of this from our end, the different activities we do and the things that we provide. And then we also act as a conduit. So the second thing is that connection piece. So important. A lot of times people come out of treatment and aren't sure what modality is right for them. That maybe 12 steps doesn't work. They went to meetings before and it didn't work, And so one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we're providing so many ways for people to get and stay connected, which is another thing that you touched on. It was so important to you once you got out of treatment and you found the different ways to get in there. And you have your crew that calls you out that says, hey, you're not acting the same today, or why didn't you show up last week? Mm-hmm. That connection is so imperative. And the last one is my favorite, and it sounds like it might be one of your favorites as well, which is service, because it changed my world as well. I got involved when I got out. Same thing as you. Friend dragged me into one of the YPOC conventions or conferences, which is the Young People in Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was a big rowdy mess of young people that are having fun, sober, being crazy, staying up all night, but doing everything for 3 days in a row centered around recovery, speaker meetings, like game nights, all kinds of different activities. And it was what lit me on fire, because I saw all these people, these conferences are put on by people that are all volunteering. Like you said, in addiction, we're all like, I ain't doing anything without knowing what I'm getting out of this, right? And I'm seeing all these people, they're happy, having fun, they're sober, they're doing everything on a volunteer basis. And like, what on earth is this? The energy of those conferences, whether it's YPA or, you know, your regular adult conference, you know,
Mm-hmm.
most of the big cities have these. The energy is unlike anything I had ever felt before. And, you know, I think that anybody who gets to experience that, it's special because it lights a fire inside of you about service, about being part of something bigger that really never dies out if we choose to keep participating. And so,
Definitely.
yeah, so that's the other thing when we talk about service. We, you know, right now part of our deal is that we do a once a month at every location service project, and then we also make, outside of COVID, I don't know where we are at the moment, but outside of COVID, we make opportunities available for the alumni to come back to the treatment centers and
Yes.
participate in different ways to give back. And so I just kind of thought that was cool. Some of the things you touched on, I just wanted to relate that back to what we're doing in Rooted and how special it is. So.
Yes. Super excited that y'all gave me the opportunity to be the alumni advisor. I'm so grateful for that. Like, I'm like, is this even real? Because like
It's so real.
from where I started to like, you know, where I'm at now, and I probably missed a lot of stuff in my story. I'm sorry, y'all, but from where I was until now, like, is crazy. Like, my family's still in shock. They're like, okay, are you like, is this really happening? Are you really like, you know, doing this well? And I'm still trying to, you know, reel it all in myself. But I always tell, you know, other people, because like we come across, so I've been working at the Right Step. I didn't mention this since December of last year, and I was a RA. And now I'm the alumni advisor. Today's my first day, so yay! And I can't wait to have so much fun. I'm very like, you know, outgoing and blah, like crazy. So
Yes.
I'm full of, you know, that type of energy. So I'm glad to, you know, I have a lot of alumni from the time that I was in the Right Step from 3.5 years ago that I still keep in contact with, you know. So I'm really excited about, you know, bringing like us getting to do stuff together, like you said, post COVID, whenever that may be. Um, but I'm really excited about that, and I can't wait to start. And it's just hopefully introduce some more people to service work and whatnot, because at first, even though they're, you know, they might not be into it or whatnot, but it's really fun because you're with a crowd of people that you can relate to, so you're all having fun together, like sober fun. And back in the day, I would never even think of what sober fun meant. Like, that would not be in my dictionary. There's there's no such thing as sober fun. Like, I always have to be high when I'm having fun. And
Yeah.
but now it's
Well,
great.
it's the opposite. It's the opposite of like when we're in that lifestyle of self-serving, instant gratification, and what have you. It's such a selfish, constant fulfillment that when we talk about service work, it's like this feeling that, I mean, maybe some of us did before we got sober, but that was so long. Just like when we're in addiction, we can't even remember what it feels like to be sober, right? Like we get into sobriety, you start doing service work. It's this feeling that's almost couldn't be any more opposite from what we're experiencing and doing in addiction. And you almost can't put words to how fulfilling it is.
I absolutely agree, because I do service work for my church as well. So like, and I think I probably started the church first because, you know, like I said, I was doing my whole spiritual thing for a year before I got back into the room and started going to meetings and whatnot. And I just love how many connections I have. So many friends. Like, I can't stress that enough to people, to get out there and like just get connected with other sober people. And like, there's meetings out there that are not bland. There's meetings that are fun. Like, my home group, I think, is hilarious. Like, I think they're great. So but I've built so many friendships in recovery, you know, and all around Houston. So like, and that's a big city. So I'm really grateful for that, because without them, I mean, they'll, if you don't show up, like you said, they'll be calling you like, hey, where are you at? Like, what's going on? And you know, I'm still human, so I still need that accountability. Like, you know, sometimes I'll like, you know, veer off, and I need that accountability, like people to be like, hey, what's going on? You know, and sometimes I feel though that I used to be very narrow minded. and now I'm more, open to looking at other perspectives. So
Same here.
yes. So, so now I'm grateful for that. So yeah,
Awesome.
I can't wait to,
sorry, what?
I can't wait to get started with the alumni. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. I can't wait for you to as well. Your story is so great, and I really appreciate you. I always like to remember to mention on here that, doing this is a little bit different than how we traditionally have shared our stories in the past in a room, with a certain amount of people. It's an added level of vulnerability that many of us haven't experienced before. So I just want to thank you for being willing to do this, because, we'll never know who and how many lives you might help guide towards the hand of recovery. So I really sincerely do thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate the opportunity, and I know I'm all over the place and I left out a bunch. So maybe the more I keep telling my story, I'll get it right. It's
perfect. I always say it comes out the way it's supposed to. And, we are a beautiful mess, and I think part of the longer we stay sober, the more we learn to embrace that. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things. So, one last thing I wanted to ask you about in closing is, we've got kind of a scrolly thing at the bottom of the screen talking about if you or someone is struggling with addiction, eating disorders, sex addiction, or mental health issues. We've got a website and a phone number that you can reach out to and either chat with online or talk to an admissions counselor from Promises Behavioral Health, our parent company that owns a number of treatment centers in the United States. And you can talk to a admissions advisor that can guide you through an assessment and finding out whether or not treatment might be right for you. And it is 100% confidential. And so I just kind of wanted to ask what you would say to somebody right now that may be watching, that's questioning their path, whether or not to pull the trigger and ask for help, and maybe can't see on the other side of they can't see outside of today and needing to feel okay today. What would you say to that person?
I would just tell them, deep down, there's, at least for me, there was a gut feeling that I knew what I was doing was wrong and I needed to reach out for help. But that's the first step. The first step that's the hardest part, is the first step is reaching out. But the advice I would give is nobody is going to look down on you. I always try to relate to the clients and be like, no matter how much I'm clean, because I only have 3.5 years, and I'm say that only, but a lot of people have a lot more time. But no matter if you have 3.5 hours or 3.5 years, we are all same. We're the same. Nobody's better than anybody. So right. Just don't get discouraged and don't think that you're, gonna disappoint anybody, because you're not. We always think that we're fooling everybody, when we're high, but you're not. You're just fooling yourself. And so that's a positive thing. If you need to reach out for help, that's the first step. And then, that's it. And just make the call, and, your family or whoever will support you. A lot of people don't have family that will support them, but will support you if, right. we got you. Just so don't be scared to do it. Just, get help and get connected, call us, and, we'll be there for you.
That's it. Thank you so much. And, I want to say one closing thought, that no matter how you came across our path today, what brought you to our show, whether you're a family member, a struggling person, a person already in recovery, we're so glad that you've joined us for this hour, and we appreciate that you have done so. And thank you, Crystal, so much for sharing your story.
Thank you, Patrick.
And happy National Recovery Month.
Yes.
Happy National
Month. Thank you all.
Hope that you all find a way to celebrate yourselves, your life, your recovery. We certainly will for the rest of the month. So stay tuned and keep up with us, because we've got a lot more